Senate Bill 1017 by Senator Allen and Ackerling of Fisheries.
Thank you,
Senator Allen.
Thank you, Madam President, members. So SB 1017 will incentivize California's swordfish fishing industry to transition away from harmful drift gill nets to more sustainable gear types such as deep set buoy gear systems by establishing a voluntary program to buy back state drift gill net permits with public and private funds. Fishermen who choose not to participate in the buyback program will be allowed to continue to use drift gill net gear for the next 5 years. These nets capture and kill dolphins, whales, sea turtles, and so many more threatened and endangered species. California is the only state in the country to allow this gear still, and even the United Nations has banned them on international waters. We're usually the leader on these kinds of issues. It's time that we're the last ones. This time we're actually the last ones using this outdated gear. It's time to change that. It's a balanced, reasonable approach to encourage this industry to transition to more sustainable gear that's available, that works, and I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Allen. Senator Gaines.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, if I could ask a question of the author.
Senator Allen, will you take a question?
Absolutely.
Please proceed, Senator Gaines.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to get clarification in terms of the potential dollar credits that could be available to commercial fishermen for changing their nets. And I guess my concern is I'd want to make sure that they had an opportunity to transition into the a net that creates less loss of sea life. And maybe you could just expand on that a little bit and provide comfort, because my concern is you've got fishermen that are making a living currently, and yet if we're transitioning them out, I want to make sure they're able to transition to the new technology.
Yep.
Please proceed.
Through the chair, I very much appreciate the questions from my friend. So the idea of this bill is to basically have a buyout program where we buy out the permits, and that with the money, if folks want to continue in fishing, they can, in swordfish fishing, they can transition over to the deep set buoy gear or other types of gear if they want to. The Pew folks have actually studied this for a number of years, and they actually have come out with a study that shows that the deep set buoy gear is more profitable than the drift gill nets. And the reason for that is that the fish that get caught in the deep set buoy gear are much less likely to be damaged. The drift gill nets are literally these mile-long nets that trawl the ocean and end up catching a lot of marine life. Part of the reason why we're so concerned about trying to phase out this technology is because tons of turtles and whales and dolphins get stuck in these nets. But the fish themselves, the swordfish, end up getting caught and damaged in the process too, so it's lower quality. And so the Pew folks have actually found that the deep set buoy gear is more profitable. And the idea is that we're going to be putting up money to allow them to make this transition. We've got some philanthropies, some foundations. There's also going to be, we've been talking to the governor's office, some sort of state contribution as well to provide a pot of money to really make sure that the fishermen are ultimately made whole, that they're able to make the transition away from this more damaging gear, and that they'll be compensated for it.
Great. It's my understanding it'd be 50% less loss of marine life, whether it's a dolphin or a whale or a sea turtle or something of that nature.
That's exactly right.
Very good. I'm going to support the legislation, and if you could just stay in communication and continue to work with the commercial fishermen for that opportunity for transition, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gaines. Senator Jackson.
Yes, very briefly, I want to commend the author for working so diligently to try to address the concerns as articulated by our colleague previously, and with a commitment that we will continue working with those who are going to be impacted by this. There are particularly a number of fishermen in my district who have been good stewards of the ocean who are going to be affected. We want them to continue fishing because they have that sense of responsibility and history with the ocean and our marine life that is the kind of sustainable approach that is so critically important as we go forward. They are going to be impacted, and with the commitment of the author that we will try to engage and have conversation with them so that they can go forward, that they can be properly compensated and continue with their careers. I will also urge an aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. Senator McGuire.
Thank you so much, Madam President and members. A few items, including what the good senator from Santa Barbara, as well as the senator from El Dorado, had just mentioned. Number one, appreciate the good senator from Santa Monica working on this issue. I know that it's extremely difficult, and you are wading into a battle that's been happening for quite some time, and grateful that you have been doing this in a very sincere manner. Just a few items, and had an ability to be able to talk with the senator prior to these words. Number one, I think buoy gear is still being tested, and the success rate of that buoy gear, it's candidly still experimental. That said, the good senator from Santa Monica has said that he's going to continue to working with fishermen, and the reason why that is so important is that these commercial fishermen, this is all they've ever known. Everything they've invested in their boat and their operation is what their retirement is going to be and how their kids are going to be supported long term. And while there has been progress made, and I'm grateful to the senator for sticking with his commitment, now amended in the bill is verbiage that says upon appropriation of the legislature to be able to help fund some type of settlement, and or that CDFW, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, needs to work with private enterprises, maybe just like Pew, to be able to help fund some type of settlement. There still needs to be work that has to be completed. And that's the one area that, as the good senator from Santa Barbara had just mentioned, making sure that there is a commitment as we move forward, that there's a commitment on behalf of the fleet, that they're going to be able to transition with grace. And I think that's the most important part of all of this, and I think that's the most important part for the fleet. My last item I'll say, Madam President, is I also know that the senator has been trying to be able to get folks at the table. This is a very challenging subject. You know that there's been some hesitancy on others to be able to come to the table, but it's because they're fearful. They're fearful that their entire life may be going away with this, and know that the senator is going to continue to work, and I'm grateful for that, and happy in your closing to be able to hear any comments that you may have. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator McGuire. Senator Anderson.
Senators, I rise in support. I think this is a thoughtful balance, sports fishermen versus commercial fishermen. And I like the idea that it's a private-public partnership. You know, in San Diego County, we have a lot of sports fishermen, and this is very important to us. But we also used to have a tuna industry that left the U.S. and took on other countries' flags to continue their operation, because there was nobody out there that was working for a public-private partnership to replace what they needed to do in order to survive here in California. And I think this bill, and thank you to the author for being thoughtful in this approach, does that balance. It allows them to continue their lifelong career and allows them a future, and at the same time, it balances sports fishermen and their needs. It's rare that we have a bill on this floor that reaches that balance. And I always think it's tough when you wade into the deep water to come out a survivor. And my compliments to the author.
Thank you, Senator Anderson. Senator Stone.
Thank you, Madam President. As the Vice Chair of Natural Resources and Water, I remember this hearing very well, in having a number of smaller fishermen and women that have successfully used the drift gill net, that claim that should we make the changes that are articulated in this bill, that it would put generations of families out of business. And the author, during that hearing, told us that he was going to be reaching out to those smaller fisher entities, fishermen, fisherwoman entities, to see if there's some type of compromises that can be made to ensure their continued commerce in the state of California. And if I, Madam President, if I may ask the author what his progress has been in working with these smaller fishermen, women entities to ensure their viability in the future if this were to be.
Senator Allen, will you take a question?
Absolutely.
Please proceed.
So the good senator from the North Coast alluded to this. I actually called a long list of fishermen, had very positive conversations, and a whole number of them had agreed to come to a meeting that we had scheduled for a couple of weeks ago. And then 2 days beforehand, they pulled out. And we didn't really know why. We're still very committed to having that opportunity to have everyone sit down. You know, I mean, we've made it very clear over and over and over again that this is all about making an effective transition that will, you know, that will actually allow people to kind of stay on their feet and keep doing their work, or move out of the business if they want to, but be compensated for it. But you know, this is what the senator was alluding to when he talked about how challenging it is. I'm very committed to, you know, to continuing that conversation and reaching out to them and engaging with them and getting to a place where we can all come to an agreement.
Thank you. On my own time, please.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to compliment my colleague from Los Angeles in reaching out to those small fishing entities. And I have to admit, I don't have a significant amount of coastline in Riverside County, thanks to Orange County. And we do border, my district does border the Colorado River, which is a whole different entity in itself. I'm going to reach out to those small fishermen. And by the way, I don't fish recreationally. I don't fish in a sporting way. I'm just not a fisherman. And I'm certainly not going to carry water for people that aren't willing to meet with you and share their concerns. So today I'm going to lay off your bill. If they don't step up to the plate and express their continued concerns to you, then I will be supporting your bill if it comes back with any amendments. So thank you for your efforts.
Thank you, Senator Stone. Senator Monning.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate the time that people have devoted to this. I know in the interest of time, we do need to move forward, but I represent a broad constituency that has a keen interest in this bill, both the fishing community and those who are working towards sustainable fisheries in my district. And I've had a chance to engage with the author. I want to thank him for his outreach to the fishing community in my district, and I'll be supportive today. I do look forward to continued dialogue as this bill moves to the Assembly, and would hope that all stakeholders would take advantage of an open, transparent process here in the state legislature to make sure their interests are heard, and to the extent possible, I know the author is committed to those stakeholders and family businesses that have been there for a long time. So thank you. I urge an aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Monning. Senator Bates.
Thank you, Madam President. I actually have one of these very difficult positions. I have a split. I represent, as a senator from Orange County and Dana Point Harbor, many sport fishermen, fisher families, including my own. We own a boat and we do occasional sport fishing, and also I represent a number of the commercial and smaller families that are involved in this. So I think today I will lay off the bill in hopes that the conversations going forward, and I understand there are only 17 companies or individuals that have these federal licenses. That seems to be a small universe that should be very much a part of the conversation. I'm not understanding why that can't be grandfathered in terms of an exception to those who currently have those licenses. Their concern is one that they will be prohibited from fishing in the manner that they have for years and years, and those from foreign ports will be able to ply our federal waters and actually take over the fishing industry and putting all of these individuals and their families in the present and the future out of business. That's of great concern, I think, to all of us, no matter what side of the issue we're on here. So it's my hope in your discussions you'll include all of those at the same table, so there can be some compromise and consensus to protect both our friends in the ocean and those who do that as a livelihood. So I wish you the best in doing that. I'd like to be part of that discussion at the appropriate time, but today I will lay off the bill. I voted no in approps for not the policy, but certainly the financial issues. There's a huge policy issue here that needs to be addressed in those roundtables. So today I will lay off and hope going forward we will find that special spot that pleases both sides.
Thank you, Senator Bates. Senator Allen, please close.
Well, thank you, members, for the thoughtful discussion. Just to follow up on Madam Minority Leader's comments, we're absolutely committed to continuing a thoughtful discussion with the folks from from both sides of this debate. This is very much supported by the sports fishermen, and I think that we'll be able to get to a place. I really do hope that we'll be able to get to a place where people do feel as though they're made whole. So with that, I respectfully ask for my vote.
Thank you, Senator Allen. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Atkins. Aye. Bates. Bell. Aye. Berryhill. Aye. Bradford. Aye. Canella. Aye. De Leon. Aye. Dodd. Aye. Fuller. Gaines. Aye. Galgiani. Aye. Glazer. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Hertzberg. Aye. Hill. Aye. Hueso. Aye. Jackson. Aye. Lara. Aye. Leva. Aye. McGuire. Aye. Mitchell. Monning. Aye. Morlock. Morrell. Aye. Newman. Aye. Wynn. Nilsson. Pan. Aye. Portantino. Aye. Roth. Skinner. Stern. Aye. Stone. Vidak. Wykowski. Aye. Wiener. Aye. Wilk. Aye.
Please call the absent members.
Bates. Fuller. Mitchell. Morlock. Wynn. Nilsson. Roth. Skinner. Stone. Vidak.
Ayes 29, no 0. The measure passes.